welcome to the program. This is Sunday Politics, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Abuja. Happy Independence, Nigerians. Let's get to it. Well, I must say, 62 years journey is not in any way a child's play. Nigeria is no longer a teenager, nor is it a youth, but it has come of age and full grown. Although its democracy of the Fourth Republic is very much nascent, but the developmental achievements of the 62-year-old giant of African continent is experiencing stunted growth and some kind of developmental kwashiorkor. That's my own coinage. Perhaps we get into the details of where our nation is and where we think it should be. It's definitely living below its potentials. You understand what I mean? For those who have seen Nigeria grow, those who experience independence. But if you were born some 20 years after independence, just like myself, you perhaps will understand that although you've not experienced regular power supply, you've been the up-NEPA generation, you perhaps will understand what I'm talking about tonight. And that is why a lot of Nigerians believe 2023 presidential elections will be crucial for the growth and rapid development of the country if the nation wishes such. It is in the voice of those who lead this nation, or the choice of those who lead this nation, of the over 200 million people whose young people have now derived pleasure and happiness in eloping the country for greener pasture at the slightest opportunity. I dare say this land is indeed flowing with milk and honey. Leadership in 2023 will be key in unlocking those potentials. President Muhammadu Buhari made some key remarks yesterday in its Independence Day speech. It touched on the 2023 elections and how crucial I think it is. Take a listen to him.
As we begin the transition process to another democratically elected government, I want to implore all aspirants to conduct issue-based campaigns devoid of hate speeches, as well as other negative and divisive tendencies. I also want to express my wish that we see more female and youth participation in the forthcoming electoral cycle. I am sure that our teeming and energetic youth now realize that violence generally mar elections and so should desist from being used by politicians for this purpose.
If you, like me, was born around the time where military coup was the order of the day, and a day like this, you sit in front of a television, perhaps waiting for a military order or another military statement, perhaps if you are out of the university classroom for the last 7 months, maybe you are hoping that you will hear some good news as far as the university lecturer strike is concerned. The president spoke about ASUU strike. Take a listen to him.
I must confess that I am very pained by the recurrent disruption to our tertiary education system, and I am using this Independence Day celebration to reiterate my call for the striking academic staff union of universities to return to the classroom while assuring them to deal with their contending issues within the limits of the scarce resources available. This administration has made appreciable progress in redressing these issues that have been lingering for over 11 years.
Well, that was not all. Well, I'm giving you all this soundbite for a reason. You will soon discover in the course of the conversation that will begin in another few seconds. The president did speak about yet another thing that perhaps I thought is also very crucial on a day as Independence Day.
As we continue to de-escalate the security challenges that confronted us at the inception of this administration, newer forms alien to our country begin to manifest, especially in the areas of kidnappings, molestation, killings of innocent citizens, banditry, all of which are being addressed by our security forces. I share the pains Nigerians are going through, and I assure you that your resilience and patience will not be in vain as this administration continues to reposition as well as strengthen the security agencies to enable them to deal with all forms of security challenges.
I share your pains. Those are the exact words of President Buhari in relation to security. His chief of staff today, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, said Nigeria will be a safer and more secure country before President Muhammad Buhari leaves office on 29th of May 2023. He spoke at the 20th convocation lecture of the graduating cadets of regular course 69 of the Nigerian Defense Academy, NDA, in Kaduna. Well, Nigeria is at this juncture where its people are aware of the enormity of the challenges, but do they really know what is required to fix their country? Tonight, we talk about Nigeria, the 62-year journey, and the crucial 2023 elections, and the future of its people. I'm being joined on the program by a former Minister of Education and at some point that of Mines and Steel, and a former Vice President at the World Bank, a policy and economist, and a former presidential candidate. She is the chairperson of Fixed Politics Initiative in the School of Governance and Politics. Dr. Obiageli Ezekwesili joins us live here in our Abuja studio. Many thanks for having you. I probably will say Happy Independence and probably Happy New Year to you. I've not seen you this year.
Yes, you haven't seen me.
Good to see you.
But it's lovely to see you, Shem. I know you've been trying to get into the studio for quite a long time.
Now that we have you.
Yes, yes.
Let's get you to speak about Nigeria.
Right.
You know so much about this country. What is your thought on a day like this when Nigeria celebrates, well, it's the second day of the Independence Day celebration, but we are still in the mood. What are your thoughts about this nation?
You know, it's amazing how Nigeria offers you contrasts, right? So the contrast in this particular case, as you can see clearly, it's evident, is on the one hand, we're on the cusp of something that's clearly different from what we've seen before, an activation of citizens' participation in our electoral process. So our democracy is getting the benefit of active citizenship. That's a great one. And then on the other hand, this feeling that perhaps also in some way drives this activation, this sense that of our 62 years, haven't quite produced the extent of important developmental outcomes that contemporaries of Nigeria have managed to produce in very far-flung places around the world, especially even in countries that have similar history as ourselves. So you've got this sense of disappointment that we haven't done as well as we could have done, and yet lying side by side it now in this moment that we celebrate our 62nd anniversary of the independence, a sense that there is some awakening that's going on. And so hope, feel it not. And it doesn't make you ashamed, right?
So when I said earlier that Nigeria is a nation flowing with milk and honey, I'm speaking with a deep understanding of potentials, not what the obtainable, not what we are obtaining or what we see right now. So I'm speaking in terms of potentials. If there is one thing that has held this country back from fulfilling its aspiration and dreams of the forefathers, or I mean, the founding fathers, what do you think that could be?
I think everybody that you've interviewed on your show, no matter how many technical reasons they provide, at the summation, they end up saying leadership is our problem. I mean, it's unbelievable. For decades after decades, we we would analyze the pitiful condition of our country, and you would see people come to conclusion, whether they are discussing health sector, or they are discussing education, or they are discussing infrastructure, or they are discussing basic governance. People end up, after all the technical things have been said, they then end up and say, leadership is our greatest problem. You know, why is that so? It is so because leadership, frankly, is that organic process that brings all the potentials you possibly have and the possibilities that you have, that coherence that is needed in order to champion a course toward a clear destination. If you don't have it, you are going to be in the kind of situation we have. So you have all the factors that could lead to growth. Yet there is no coherent direction of the energies that are possible. And so what you end up with would be pitiful outcomes. So I often say to people that, you know, the importance of this concept of leadership is established through empirical analysis that shows more and more that the absence of good governance is the biggest barrier that you can have to development. It's the biggest barrier you can have to growth. The absence of good governance, you know, it really is not just the absence of systems and procedures and structures and institutions. It is most importantly the absence of that human capability to lead, to direct, to organize, to mobilize, to inspire, and to make people aspire towards something better than their current state.
Would you say you're a bit disappointed at the performance of the government of the day? Or how would you describe their performance?
I'm surprised you're asking me this question. I think I was one of the Nigerians that stayed persistent to the matter of demanding for good governance in this country. I demanded for good governance even in the government I worked in, because in the government I worked in, I was known as Madam Due Process, remember? And I was not liked. I was not liked by the people even in that government that I worked in, because of this demand that we must govern well. Because if we don't govern well, then the opportunities that are necessary to inspire social and economic mobility of those outside of the privilege that we have had will not come. It will not come to pass. So we needed good governance even at the time that I was in government. And so in fact, in the economic team, I was the subcommittee or subtask team leader of the administration's good governance, accountability, transparency, economic governance aspect. So the reason that I say this is that I stayed consistent with that. I demanding good governance.
And you never kept quiet.
And I never kept quiet.
When you and your friends were on the street demanding the release of the Chibok girls, it got a global reckoning, and a lot of people, and it awakened some kind of sensibilities in a lot of people across the world of how much pain it is to take innocent children out of their schools, away from the parents, and some of them are in fact just released a few weeks ago. But the question here is that you're one of those who have demanded good governance, and you stayed committed to it. You've tried your best to see that you can convince Nigerians to see how good governance can be achieved. I remember that you were called as the speaker to the APC retreat in 2014 or 2015. Now you said, I hope you guys know what you are up against. I mean, by calling me into this event.
Yes.
And some of those things that you said, looking back 7 years later, what are your thoughts?
Oh, well, just ask people to go to your own website and download the speech and compare it with what we see on, you know, in the country. I mean, the truth is that the summary of that speech was essentially saying that, you know, the idea that all you need to do is focus on vacuous statements of a political set of people who have a different set of acronyms in order to get development is a ruse. That's not reality. So I was essentially saying, if you're going to be effective in governance, and which is, you know, for example, when I remember the Denver, I think it was the Denver primaries of Obama, when Obama became, I was one of those who was at one of the sessions speaking concerning the matter of the administration, you know, should he win the ticket, the issues around development. So it wasn't unusual for me to have been invited. In fact, when I was invited, I said to them, are you sure that you're actually inviting me to come speak to a group of politicians in Nigeria? They said yes. I said, no, go check that you're really inviting me. And so they invited me. And I had to say with candor, the issues. I said to them that Nigeria's story, if you look at it from an empirical analysis perspective, our story has not been the story of just, you know, the political party. It's been the fact that we have actually lacked the kind of leadership that in one person and persons, in other words, our leadership class, our political class, we've not seen an amalgam of people with the requisite skills of leadership. You know, skills of leadership are not, they're not just ad hoc. They are not things that happen by virtue of somebody thinking I could be a leader. You know, so those attributes of competence, of character, of capacity, there is a deliberateness behind it that then enables people to mobilize the kind of action that is necessary to deliver on...
If you look at the 18 presidential candidates on the bill this time around, would you say there are maybe one or two people that you think possess this kind of character or traits?
I do think that, you know, regardless of what parameter you use, that at least we might find maybe up to 3 people who you could say there are certain parts of the boxes that they tick. But this is what we're served, right? We're served badly as a country in terms of our political class, which is part of why I'm excited that young people are entering into that space, that women are entering into that space. It gives me enormous joy. But, you know, I mean, somebody says to you, between a cast of possible presidents that include the 3 forerunners that we currently have, a possible President Tinubu, a possible President Atiku, a possible President Obi. Do you need anybody to tell you where you would be going? I mean, for goodness sake, it would be an Obi. Because regardless of the fact that he comes from that particular political class that we still are talking about, he still at least represents many shades better than the other 2 top candidates. So I believe that the momentum that we're driving through in the country at this time is a momentum that's sort of saying, let's really evaluate who will be our leader. But I think that the most significant thing for me is really that a society must come to the place where they finally say, we want to vote for ourselves.
Have you gotten to that point? I mean, you look at the numbers of the young people, and you've mentioned the young people 3 times since you started speaking in the last few minutes. And for those who have seen how the young people have related with elections in the past, will tell you that they are very docile. The records and the numbers say as much that young people have not been serious about coming out on election day. Will 2023 be any different from what you've seen so far? You
know, I have been very close to young people all my life, you know, because I actually was a beneficiary of elders who took interest in my life, you know. So when you look at the likes of Justice Kayode Esho, he was a mentor. Our dear Mr. Gamaliel Onosode was a mentor. You know, I've been mentored by incredible people. So you can imagine how young I was then. They gave me a chance to sit with me, share wisdom with me. I am not disdainful of young people in the way that sometimes I hear people speak. There's so much that's been against the young in our society, so much has been against them. And so sometimes when you see some of the behaviors that we don't like, it pains me. I don't like it also, but I'm able to say, I understand where that's coming from. Put that aside and now focus on what happened October 2020. The young people actually mustered the courage and they said, you know what? We're tired. We really are tired. You need to listen to us. And they made a statement, but were they listened to? They were not listened to. And it was so characterized, it was mischaracterized as something other than what the young were saying. Frankly speaking, I just sometimes imagine how differently this society, this governance process would be in our country if those in leadership would listen.
And I dare to ask you tonight that could there be an imminent threat on the regular, traditional political class in this country?
I've prayed for that. I have to tell you, I am not, I am so excited. You remember that as part of that whole process of getting our society to understand that in a democracy, you cannot, as the citizens, be on the periphery of it and then expect something valuable to happen. It wouldn't happen. And that's because, as I went on after I ran for president, I spent time in Berlin and I was doing a research to understand why our politics, is constantly failing us, not just in Nigeria, but across the continent. And one thing became clear in my analysis, that what we have is a monopoly democracy. We have monopoly democracies because the political class act like monopolists. They totally occupy the entire space of what I call the triangular pillars of democracy. And then the citizens are on the periphery. The regulators of the political process are also in the pocket of the political class. So the supply side is dominant, and therefore they exercise the authority of the monopolist, who has no incentive to give you anything of value. Everything profit making is totally high, high tension, high level for the monopolist. And so in our democracy, that's what we have had. However, I did say in that research that the way to get the citizens to the space that they should occupy in democracy would be to challenge and contest all the barriers that stand in the way of their involvement. And so for the middle class, coming to the place where they realize that we are cooked. The middle class suddenly realized that, hey, God, we can't look away. That's why you're saying, by the definition of middle class today, the person who has been able to acquire a university education is literate enough to function in that space. But of course, the joblessness doesn't enable them function. So they come to a place of awareness where they suddenly say, wait a minute, we have the power. And so it's consistent with what I coined, that the office of the citizen is the most powerful office in the land.
If the citizens realize it. So now they are realizing it and they are activated. And some people are actually mocking. There are people who are mocking this whole development. And I love the fact that maybe it does not, because it has not really happened in an electoral cycle. Well, and that is why, for those who think the norm might play again, people have said money had always played a major role in our politics. Yes. People trade votes, yes. They buy and sell. Yes. Poverty is at the heart of the matter. And that, if that factor is still there in 2023, you cannot take away the fact that people will be offered 5,000 naira, 4,000 naira for their vote, and it will still be a case of the highest bidder who gets the day. So what are your views on the issue of the money politics and the danger it portends for 2023 election? It is a legitimate
counterpoint to the what do you call it, the enthusiasm, the kind of elation that we feel at current developments. So we mustn't in any way sort of say that doesn't matter. It does matter, because there is still a segment of the electorate that their productivity is so low and they've been so debased by the situation of the country. So for them, it is rational to get their 1,000 and to turn their vote for whoever gave them the 1,000. So we would still have that. But the issue that you have to put now into your model through which you're looking analytically at what the possibilities are, is to be data-driven. And so you look at the data around, young people with education, okay, or young people still in the educational process who are now sort of saying, we're going to participate in this and we're going to drive it and we're going to make sure we stay with it. Now, that decision that they have made to not look away like they used to. In the past, a democracy was a democracy of the people at the low income bracket. Now you're saying the people, the middle class, I used to say middle class acted irresponsibly in our political space. But today you're seeing them sort of saying, no, we're no longer going to do that. When you look at the data on them, the ones that are self-organizing, have you seen that? So you don't have a situation where a political party is distributing some prebends to people and saying, vote for us. And yet the citizens are self-organizing. And it's an intergenerational thing that we're saying. So there are some of the oldies who have decided, I'm done with Nigeria, and they're no longer participating, but they are weakened. So you can't dismiss this phenomenon. What is important for this phenomenon is for it to be better organized. It just needs to be strategic in its approach, because I fear that the existing system is going to find a way of voter suppression, or of doing something that will be inimical to the process. So you must be anticipatory and preemptive so that you can take the kind of actions that would counter any attempt to staying entrenched with the status quo.
I know the academic and the activism side of you. I know the governance side of you, but I also know that you have the spiritual side of you and the role you play in the church as a pastor.
Especially as a pastor's wife, I always make sure that people...
for people like us, we know that a pastor's wife is also equally a pastor.
Yes, I am. I actually am.
So I will be asking you to look at a crystal ball.
No, I'm going to look at the biblical pages. I don't like crystal balls.
But I know that either we like it or not, religion and ethnicity have played a major role. I'd like you to comment briefly on that before I'd like you to look at what the future and give your own permutation of what could happen. Briefly, do you see religion and perhaps ethnicity? Because if you look at the gamut of or the list of those who are running for office, you discover that there is no alignment in terms of unison a political class now on one way, one ethnic group running for the office. You have them across the ethnic lines. So it means that there will be some kind of voices here and there, and people might vote according to how they feel ethnic-wise. Do you see religion and ethnicity playing a major role? Briefly.
So, we are a diverse society. We know that it is important to manage our diversity efficiently, effectively, and in a way that is equitable. Now, I think that there is a segment of this population that looks at what APC and PDP did, and they find it utterly contemptible. First, in the case of APC, how could you possibly be fielding Muslim candidates in a society that has always found a way to ensure the balance? Even in the time of the military, they were smart to always find, the northern head of state would find a deputy that would be a Christian, right? And from the south, right? And then and then you come as democracy, and you're not even sensitive to that. That shows a complete It's like being contemptible of a segment of your population. That is not right. And then you look at the PDP. This is a party that always said that it tries to be built around inclusion. And so it always sort of made it possible for the rotational principle to support the emergence of their candidate. And suddenly, a candidate emerges who has been running for as candidate of that party many other times. And, you know, why would that happen? When you know that clearly the time of the people that are from the Southeast, as you designed it to be, is now. And you just upstage that. And yet, you have the arrogance to be saying to them that they have no reason to complain, because this is the season of character, competence, and capacity. My goodness, that is sophistry. Because if you're going to use character, competence, and capacity, then many of them don't qualify to be the ones saying we should be the ones running. They should, within the Southeast, they could have found the people with the character, competence, and capacity. And by the way, Mr. Obi, who is now the candidate of Labour Party, was in your party. So if you really needed character, competence, and capacity in a way that is just, you know, that is just, in a way that is equitable, in a way that is inclusive, in your PDP, you could have made Peter Obi become your candidate. So when you look at all of this, you now see that there are many segments of our society that are vexed. And before people begin to say, oh, this is an Igbo people thing, it's not true. I have so many people who are people from the north, people who are Muslims, people from the south who are Muslims, who simply say that it is not proper that the two dominant parties acted the way they did. So a lot of that is also fueling the kind of support that Peter Obi is receiving.
Let's wrap up quickly, and perhaps 30 seconds. This is the part where you have to look into the future, and I'll glean from your experience in government and perhaps in politics also. You've learned your lesson and you've seen how things could go in politics. How do you think the 2023 election will pan out? Just in 30 seconds.
30 seconds, I'm done. Anyway, Shehu, two things are possible, two possible outcomes. That this extant political class, in their ruthlessness, simply say, we're not going anywhere. And so they would do anything, including take the nation down in order to maintain the status quo. All right? That's a possible outcome, but it's an outcome that we can mitigate against by the collective effort of citizens across this land. And then the other outcome is the outcome where basically the citizens that are currently self-organizing, self-organize even more strategically and understand that everybody should be at a polling booth with their PVC ready to vote. And not just vote, but that they would stay there and be the guardian angels of the vote of citizens, right? But especially, I think that, you know, just making sure that the credible process that the INEC has promised is what we get. The INEC, as the regulator of the political system, has to be above board. I mean, totally above board, beyond reproach. Anything that is contrary will not be welcome by the citizens.
Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, it's always a pleasure. A 2-hour conversation with you cannot be enough to take out those things you brought from Germany and the rest of it. Thank you so much. It's good to see you again.
So lovely to see you.
Thank you so much indeed.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Happy independence.
Yes, same to you. Thank you so much. We'll take a break, everyone. And when we return, the Obidati rave and the rallies, which has gotten attention of the major political establishment, gets us talking next on the program. Stay with me, everyone. We'll be right back. so much, everyone, for staying with us. Yesterday was October 1st and Nigeria's Independence Day. Yes, but it was a day of rallies and campaign for political parties. The Labour Party especially and the Peter Obi supporters took to the streets of major cities to hold what they called 1 million man walk, 2 million man walk, and all the rest. Let me show you what those rallies looked like in some of the cities. First is in Lagos. Look at the picture of the Obi Dati rally in Lagos. And from Lagos, let me show you what it looked like in Kaduna State. And of course, that's Kaduna. From there, pictures of that of Osun in the southwest region of the country. And Bauchi in the northwest. Bauchi State, of course, in the northeast region of the country. So these are some of the states where the Obi Dati rallies took place. Well, there have been reactions to these rallies. For example, the spokesperson of the APC presidential campaign, Mr. Festus Keyamo, put up a post on his social media where he said that the areas shot at the best, to look at, the way to look at this, at best, the crowd here is not more than 1,000 people, which is approximately just 2 polling units. He tweeted at a video showing the Obi Dati, one of the Obi Dati rallies. Now, an aide to the former President Goodluck Jonathan, Mr. Reno Omokri, also took to his social media page. He said the so-called 1 million man marches are mostly a gathering of traders in various Nigerian towns and cities who close down their markets that are heavily dominated by people of southeastern origin to do what in the military is called a show of force. End of quote. It might be a surprise that Peter Obi and Labour Party, who were not considered much of a threat in the early days, have been receiving some attention politically. And the rave recently, could Peter Obi pose a major threat or upset in the race, considering that most polls now are being in Peter Obi's favor? Well, don't forget, someone like Atiku Abubakar was also in Gombe. The crowd that came out for Atiku Abubakar in Gombe also got attention. That is it on your screen. Let's get talking. Now, the campaigns have started. So what does these rallies mean? Do the turnout of people really mean anything? Is the Peter Obi, who has caused upset in the polls, really caused a real upset at the polling booths? I'm being joined by one of the leaders of the National Conscience Forum and a leader of course, in the Labour Party, former presidential candidate Alhaji Yunus Otanko, just here live now, Abuja Studio. Thank you so much indeed for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
And virtually from London is a former presidential aide to former President Goodluck Jonathan, Mr. Reno Omokri. Thank you so much, Mr. Omokri, for joining us tonight. Perhaps I should begin with you. You have spoken. You seem to be concerned, and in fact, the Labour Party have officially responded to you to say, well, you are talking about the rallies of the Obi Dati because you're seeking attention. What are your views, and what exactly gets your attention about these Obi Dati rallies?
Well, here's the thing. I spoke about the rallies. I spoke very positively about the rallies, and the Punch carried that. You read the more critical comment, but there was a more positive comment. But here's the thing about rallies. Rallies tend to excite the base. They don't expand the base. I'll say that one more time. Rallies tend to excite the base. They don't expand the base. So what will expand your base are canvassing. And the Labour Party is not canvassing. Right now, the only parties that are really canvassing are the PDP, the APC, and then the NNPP. So when you're having rallies, what you're doing is that you're actually preaching to the choir. Now, if you see, you quoted the spokesman for the APC, PCC, and he was actually right. These rallies, they have maybe about between 1,000 and 2,000 people. Now, what's happening, what we're seeing here is that, in various states across the country, you have people of Southeast origin. They are the most itinerant people in Nigeria, and that's where a lot of the base of Peter Obi is coming from. So obviously, yes, they will gather, they will have these rallies. But what's the effect of these rallies? Look, what's going to determine this election is going to be at the registered voters. And we see in the Northwest, we've got 22.67 million registered voters. In the Southwest, we've got 18.3 million registered voters. In the South-South, we've got 15.2 million registered voters. In the North Central, we've got 14.1. In the Northeast, 12.8. And then in the Southeast, we've got 11.49. Now, those are realities. What the Labour Party is doing, they're actually preaching to the choir. And except they expand their base, the election is going to be a foregone conclusion. I heard what the former education minister said. When you asked her, she said that Peter Obi was a shade brighter than the others. By what parameter am I asked? If you invigilate that, but if you look at the facts, you see, educationally, in their personal life, their experience in government and in corruption, Peter Obi is at the bottom of the pile. Let's talk about education. Amongst the four major presidential candidates, Rabi Musa Kwankwaso has a PhD in water engineering. Waziri Atiku Abubakar has a master's with distinction in international relations. Bola Tinubu has a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from Chicago State University. Now, what does Peter Obi have? He has a second-class degree in philosophy. Now, obviously, that is the least educationally qualified person. Now, if you look at their private life, Waziri Atiku Abubakar employs 12,500 people producing made-in-Nigerian goods and services right here in Nigeria with Nigerian citizens. Peter Obi is the single largest individual importer in Nigeria. So when he talks about moving Nigeria from consumption to production, it's almost like a contradiction. You are the single largest individual importer in Nigeria. So how can that be?
All
now,
right.
if you look at the
just a moment. So let's take you. I'm still going to come to a few of the issues that you have raised and the ones you have not talked about. Let me allow Mr. Tanko to react to what you have said. You heard what Reno said, basically that you do not have the right base, and you are not gathering the base. You are exciting the base. How do you react to it? And in the first place, they said you guys do not have the structure.
Let me correct what he said. He said we are singing to the choir, and the choir is responding loud and clear. Even he himself can hear the voice where he's staying out of the country. The choir has responded so loudly that he's become so perturbed that he's reading out statistics that are all truly unfounded. Let me, first of all, not be distracted with some of those false statistics that was given. Let me, first of all, thank Nigerians for coming out en masse to show that organic love for Peter Obi.
When you say organic love?
Yes, organic.
What do you mean?
What I mean, they are not doing a copy and paste kind of
You
campaign.
mean Labour Party is not the one organizing this rally?
No, not a single organization. We have not even...
Nobody is sponsoring this rally?
Nobody, not single person. We have not even kicked off the campaign. What you saw in Jos was an organic organization by the Middle Belt Forum to give endorsement for Peter Obi. What you saw on the 1st of October was the best independence celebration the nation has ever gotten. Over 40 cities. All the zones of the Federal Republic of Nigeria were represented, and they gave that organic love, without unsolicited organic love that was given to Peter Obi. And here you are, people are saying that there's a choir noise that all of them are so disturbed about that is making them jittery. And now we are satisfied, and we are thanking them for making that particular coming out in that large number. And of course, our principal tweeted that there's a girl, Chioma, who came out. The lives of Chioma are replicated in Amina, Ankpa, and Akpan, and the rest of them, Ashake, all over the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Those are the people that we are fighting for. Those are the people that we are trying to get out of the quagmire on their unborn children, to protect them and rescue them. Not those particular individuals who could not even start the test of time.
He said, in terms of qualification.
Yes.
that your candidate is perhaps the least of the 4 people that you will put forward as the top front runners in the race.
I'm so happy that he didn't say that he has a fake document. He only said that he has a second-class physiology, which he got in University of Nigeria, Nsukka, confirmed. And the least requirement that you want for a presidential candidate is just a primary certificate. They don't even say that you have to have 5 credits, no, a primary certificate, which of course is alluded to a particular presidential person at the moment now, but there was no any issue as regard to. So we are glad we have a qualified person running for the presidency of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
But in terms of competence and capacity, he's made a point there that is least qualified.
Not at all.
Can Nigerians vote for a least qualified person?
When he even visited the Emir of Kano, he listed even the 3 C's, which you alluded to, even the 6 C's. He said the man has competence, he has character, he's consistent, he's credible, he has compassion, he has the capacity to lead Nigeria. This is the quality that we know. And you know, Seun, I want to challenge any of the other candidates. If they can generate this kind of love that we saw in Peter Obi all across the Federal Republic of Nigeria in one sweep. None. None. None of them can generate it. We didn't give the...
This early coming out for your candidate, what do you think it means? What does it portend?
It shows that Nigerians are ready to take back their country, irrespective of their religion, tribe, or creed. They have shown that love. And Seun, I can bet you there is obedience in every family household, and I'm sure in Omokri's house there is obedience, including the presidency.
What do you mean by that?
Exactly, because there are staff in the presidency whose children are out of schools, and ASU strike is on for almost 8 months. There are workers in the presidency whose children cannot take care of 3 square meals. There are people in ASU Villa that even in their homes, they cannot be assured of electricity.
So Peter Obi stands for the average Nigerian.
Yes.
It stands for the voice.
It stands for every Nigerian who has been annihilated.
That is what you, Labour Party, are pushing for.
Let me allow Reno. Because he has shown it.
Let me allow Reno to come back. On this program last week, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole said the pain that the PDP will feel is that most of the places that are traditional PDP stronghold have now become Peter Obi and Labour Party's stronghold. And who will get the back end of the stick this time around, it will be Atiku Abubakar and the PDP. I'd like you to respond to that.
Well, I will respond to that, but before I do, I'd like to respond to some of the things that this gentleman has said. First and foremost, that statement credited to the former MI of Kano has been disclaimed by that man. He said he didn't make that statement. So that's a false statement. And then if you're looking at, he said that, Peter Obi will address the issue of ASU strike and other strikes. Look, Peter Obi was governor of Anambra State. While he was governor, doctors were on strike for 13 months. Am I lying? You can ask him. While he was governor of that state, schools were closed down. I think it was 7 months. You can research it. You can Google it. So, I mean, these people that come up on air and say that Peter Obi will make Nigeria into paradise. Look, when he was governor of Anambra State, did he turn Anambra into a paradise? Now, if you address the issue by Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, look, the issue with the APC is much more than the issue with the PDP. I do agree that some of the areas, because Peter Obi is more likely to take votes that would have come to the PDP than votes that would have come to the APC. But the whole country has rejected the APC. The whole country has rejected the APC. So, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, I mean, he's not in a position to give us counsel. Look, this country is where it is right now, almost comatose, almost on its knees, because of the APC. While the PDP was in power, Nigerians know what they were enjoying. They know how much was the price of fuel. They knew how much was dollar to the naira. They knew how much the security situation. So there's no basis for comparison between the PDP and the APC. As a matter of fact, when Waziri Atiku Abubakar was chairman of the National Economic Council, Nigeria paid off its entire foreign debt. 0. We owed 0. Right now, we are owing about 48 trillion naira. So, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole is unfortunately mistaken. Now, going back to the analysis, I said, if you look at the 4 presidential candidates, by what parameter can you say Peter Obi is the best? There's none. You know, if you compare their experiences in government, look at when he was in government. Even Kwankwaso has a better record in office. Okay, you talk about corruption, which is one of their strongest forte. The only person among the 4 major presidential candidates mentioned in the Pandora Papers scandal is Peter Obi. He was mentioned as corruptly enriching himself, and I don't know if it's true. I'm not saying it is true. I'm just saying what the Pandora Papers say, that he was mentioned as corruptly taking monies out of Nigeria and hiding them in offshore banks or offshore accounts.
Mr. Mokri, let me allow Alaji Tanko to respond to those.
Well, you see, we have a capable presidential candidate who is not afraid to answer questions directly. When he raised the issue of Pandora box, Peter Obi had come out and cleared the air clearly on what was involved. And so we will want the same thing to happen to their own presidential candidate when they have been accused of the corruption that are already taking place. These are people who have put Nigeria into perpetual poverty right from the beginning. They have been involved in corruption. Are you talking about the Dick Cheney, Malabo issues that already not been swept over the carpet? We are talking about somebody who has been accused by his principal. Openly, the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Dr. Olusegun Obasanjo, has completely come out to debunk that he cannot vouch for the person of his own candidate. That is a complete indictment that comes. Nobody has come out to indict Peter Obi, verbally, physically, or none. There's nobody. And, you see, for now, there's no time for hide and seek anymore. Nigerians are tired of games and people lying to them. Amakari is just saying that the Emir of Kano debunked. I was there. If you can place the couple, the Emir spoke in Hausa, and he clearly mentioned the capacity of the competency of Peter Obi. I was there. I was not told. So you don't come onto the air and keep on telling people's lies. Nigerians have known the truth, and they are ready to fight for their country. So nobody, anytime you make any statement, you should be able to justify it. So I was physically there.
Yeah, I'll give 30 seconds for both of you to respond. And these are some of the issues that we are talking about. Capacity, Nigerians want to see. Who will lead them with capacity? Corruption or anti-corruption record, Nigeria wants to see who has the best to vote for.
Yes.
So let me allow 30 seconds for each. Mr. Mokri, please go first. Your final thought on the program tonight.
Well, I would say that former President Olusegun Obasanjo endorsed Waziri Atiku Abubakar in 2019, and that he said he was the best candidate then, and that this was a man who had the capacity. So if what he said is true, why would former President Olusegun Obasanjo endorse him? And also in terms of education, Waziri Atiku Abubakar has a master's with distinction in international relations. In terms of employment, and one of the major problems of Nigeria right now is that we have about 67 million unemployed people or underemployed people. Waziri Atiku Abubakar, in his own private life, employs 12,500 Nigerians producing made in Nigerian goods and services. And if you talk about experience in government, right now Nigeria is having a debt crisis. We are owing so much. This was a man who, as chairman of the National Economic Council of Nigeria, paid off Nigeria's debt completely. So you have a man who is ready and who is prepared.
We need to go.
When you talk about the issue of debt, these are the same people who have put us in this perpetual debt. It started from them. When he was vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, they are the one that put us in this particular debt issue. And when you talk about issue of production, we say, fine, our principal import. But do you know that he doesn't sell this particular product by himself? There were people, Nigerians, who were employed, and most of them have learned the trade in terms of training them, and they have become productive. So in that regard, we are producing people who can be productive in nature. And when you look at the credibility and the capacity of Peter Obi, he has shown it in Anambra State. I have told you before here that he has synergized with the Nigerian police, providing security for his people. Not only that, he synergized with the Nigerian Medical Association, building hospital. He synergized with the industry, making sure that the hotels and all. He synergized with making sure that our roads on the street, people are connected from their villages. This is practical example of what. And this is somebody who did not owe any debt. Challenge anybody. He paid up even workers who are in their pension and all. This is one of the things that you should be expecting when Peter Obi becomes the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Alhaji Yunusa, thank you. Thank you so much indeed for coming. And Mr. Reno Mokri, thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'll see you again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Bye for now.